What's up everyone, and welcome to another Rust electrical tutorial. I'm Austin, and today I'm going to be covering how to use the new digital clock. Now this is a new and pretty cool addition to the game and has such potential that I'm just going to cover the basics and a couple of very simple examples in this video, and we will cover other ways and more advanced ways you can use this in future videos. Quick disclaimer before we get started, you'll notice that my digital clocks appear to be locked at 12:01. You will not experience this. This is simply because I have a plugin on my server that allows me to lock it to high noon for the purpose of lighting my sets as you see them. So you will not experience that. I will turn it off at appropriate times in the video, and you will see how it'll behave and how you should expect it to behave. So the basics, you're going to need a level 2 workbench. You're going to need 100 metal frags to craft it, so not too bad. Each digital clock has a maximum of 5 alarms. We'll cover that in more detail here shortly. It does require 1 Rust watt to power. So, we have to say that because certain switches in Rust no longer draw power or draw active usage. This thing does require 1 Rust watt, and it does pull active usage. It's only 1, but just be aware that it does pull active usage. It will pass power for approximately 5 seconds. That has implications on how you can use this and how you should think about it when you're using it, and we will cover that, of course, in more detail. So placement is pretty simple. It's what you'd expect. You can place it, it'll snap, it'll do all the things that most will do. Just play around with it and you will find it to be fairly intuitive. The unit itself has a single power input and a single power output. So your power in, you'll have to send, like I said, at least 1, and then if you want to pass a minimum of 2, it'll pass whatever is sent to it greater than 1. So just think of it as if you send 5 minus 1, it'll send 4 once the alarm goes off. The UI is fairly simple to understand. It has a down here you'll see a little speaker. This turns on and off the audible portion of the alarm. So if you want it to say set an alarm, pass power, whatever, but you want it to do it silently, you're going to want to turn that off. And so you'll see I'll kind of have it on and off throughout this video. You'll see what that sounds like. It has to set alarms itself. You just click this little plus button here, and you can set the alarm. It's a 24-hour format, as you can see by dragging this, or you can select the actual time and just set some time that you want. Just make sure you hit save if you want it to save, obviously. To remove an alarm, hit the minus button there. Something that I messed up when I first was playing with this is that I assumed that I had to press this check mark to set the alarm. That actually deactivates that alarm and skips it. So whatever you set this to, once you save it, that is set. That is the alarm. It will go off at 12:15. So just know that. Pretty simple. I can demonstrate this by, let's get out of this. I'm going to get out of this lock time. Let's see what time we are really at here. We are at 14:57, 2:57 p.m. And so if I were to go in here and set an alarm for 15:02, like so, as soon as this gets to 15:02, it is going to pass that 1 extra Rust watt that I sent it, and it will light up that light for approximately 5 seconds. And so that is kind of what I meant by the implications of how you use it. This is really an input device. There we go. You'll see the alarm is sounding. If I had turned that off, it would have been silent, but still lit up that light, and then it moves on. That's it. It's pretty simple to use, and as you can see, because it only pulses for approximately 5 seconds, it is an input device to trigger something else, which I have some good examples down there, which we'll cover here in a moment. Over here, this is the exact same thing. I just have it set up with the counters here, so it's showing pass-through, so you can see it. It's literally the same thing. 2 Rust watts arriving here, nothing coming out of here until this is set. So if I go in here and set an alarm for, say, 15:10, we'll turn it off this time so there's no audible. You'll notice that it'll go off, but it'll do it silently, and it passes power for approximately 5 seconds. 1 there, 2 there, because you're using 1 here. Pretty simple stuff. And the other thing to note is that if you've never, until we got this clock, most people probably didn't realize how Rust handled the day-night cycle. So right now you'll notice that it's ticking forward at a pretty predictable rate there. If I were to go and make it nighttime, so let's set the server time to like 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever that is in the middle of the night, and you'll notice that it's moving considerably faster. This is just how the game handles the day-night cycle, and so Don't worry about that. If you run across this, this is exactly what it should be doing. So now it's set back to around noon, and that is the basics. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is two very simple examples. They're both on-off examples. I'm just going to show you two applications just to kind of get you started. And the build for each is the same pretty much, and you just need a branch, the actual digital clock, and a memory cell. The memory cell pairs extremely well with the new digital clock, and so that's something we'll talk about a little bit here and in future videos. But just, you know, this little build, I think you'll see, has some pretty serious utility. And so what I have set up here is I've got a branch here coming in, and I've got power coming from just some generic source. This whole thing is 3 rust watts. What I'm running here to do all this is 3 rust watts. I did that on purpose. I want 1 to pop out of here and come to the memory cell, which does not require power anymore, or does not use power anymore, and does not use active usage anymore. And so that 1 will pass to whatever side is currently active on the memory cell. And then out the output, the power out of this branch, that's running to the digital clock, because remember, we need at least 2 if you want it to pass anything. And when it does pass, that's connected to the toggle of this memory cell. So it's going to swap the memory cell between the inverted output and output. And what I've done is I've sent the inverted output here over to the force stop on this generator, and I've sent the output of that memory cell over to the force start on that generator. You know, let's say you want to set this to basically turn on at night when your solar cells are not getting any power generation. You can set this up for a day-night cycle where this runs, you know, at night, or just for some amount of time at the same time every day. And I'm going to say, let's go ahead and set this to, it's 12:28. We'll set it to 12:32 for the first one. And then I'm going to set another one for 12:34, and we'll save it. Let's see if we got there in time, just in time. So it's going to kick this on for the first alarm. There we go. The 12:32 alarm turned it on, and then the 12:34 alarm is going to turn it off here in a second as soon as that hits. There you go. So that was a quick demonstration over the course of just a couple of in-game minutes. However, you could set this for dusk and then have it turn on when the sun goes down, and you could set it to turn it off automatically when the sun goes up. And this is just a manual setup. You could do this, you know, and again, we'll cover this in more complicated builds, but this little circuit here, the digital clock, the memory cell, and a branch, you can turn on and off something over some amount of time that you set in your base. So this is really cool. The second example of this is the same thing. It's actually built identically. It's just that the power distribution is different this time. You know, I want these 3 lights to come on at when it gets dark, and I want them to turn off when it gets light. And so that is a total of 8 rust watts, and that includes the 6 required to the light. So I've got 8 arriving here, and then from the branch out, I've set this to 6. Because I want this to arrive at this memory cell, and I want it to send out 6 to these lights depending on when this alarm goes off. The power out again is 2 because I need 1 to power the clock and then 1 to pass, and then we're going to the toggle on that memory cell again. I have a button here. I'll explain that here in a moment. But let's say I go in here. I've got these set for 8 a.m. and 1900. So 1900 is like 7, was that 7 p.m., 12? 19 minus 12 is 7. And so it's going to turn the lights on at 1900, and it'll turn them off at 0800. And so what I can do, and I have the alarm off because I don't want it to make any noise. So I can just go in here and say it is currently almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm going to set this to, we'll go ahead and go to 18.8. So right before 7 p.m. And server will change. Here we go. And you'll see that the clock will catch up, 1851. And then as soon as it gets to 1900, and you see how it's speeding up. We talked about that earlier. As soon as it gets to 1900, these lights are going to pop on because the alarm is going to toggle that memory cell over to the other side. And so there we go. So that they just turned on. And they're going to stay on. We just hit that first alarm at 1900 here that we're at. And at 8 a.m., it's going to, another alarm's going to go off, and it's just going to hit this toggle again. That's why we're using the toggle. It'll pop it back over. So these lights would stay on all night until 8 a.m. So I can just go back in here, set it to, we'll set it to what? It's 8 a.m. We'll do 7.8, same thing. That'll work. And there we go. It's 7:49, 7:50. Here we go. So as soon as this gets to 8 a.m., I'm just jumping time to speed this up, obviously. As soon as this gets to 8 a.m., it's going to, the alarm will go off. Another alarm will go off, which will toggle that memory cell. And there you go. So this is like the new version of the, I'm going to put back on my lock it to high noon. This is like the new version of what we would do with the solar panels to detect light and turn things off with blockers and or whatever. So this is a really, really cool thing. And as you can tell, I had one version of it where it's controlling a generator, one version where it's, controlling these. Something I could see happening is that depending on when you build this and set the alarms and the current state of the lights, if you were to have, say you set these lights up this way, they're actually on now. And so once the alarm went off, they would be on during the day, and then the alarm would, turn them off when it got dark. So you could either just, if that happens to you, you can simply switch it from one side of the memory cell to the other to set it to the right interval, basically. Or you could have a button and you could, set it to, if you needed to move it, you could, let's say they were here. I said it's the wrong one. Let's say they were here, and the memory cell was there, and instead of swapping this, you could simply use this to swap the memory cell manually to put it in the right interval, and then you're good. However you want to do it. Obviously, the simplest way is to just move this over to the opposite one so that during the day, you know that they're off when they should be off, and then it'll set itself, and you won't have to worry about it ever again. So that, folks, is just about all I've got. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below. Otherwise, you can get me on my Discord. See you later.